Hi everyone. Welcome back to our channel English Rise. This channel is a space to improve your English listening and speaking skills through calm, clear, and meaningful stories. If you want to train your English every day while reflecting on deep ideas about life and mindset, consider subscribing to the channel. Now take a breath, relax your mind, and let this story begin. Part 1. The quiet truth most people avoid. There is a truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It arrives quietly, usually in moments of exhaustion or disappointment. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to fix your habits. No one is coming to heal your wounds for you. No one is coming to live your life in your place. At first, this truth feels heavy. It feels lonely. It feels unfair. It feels cold. But this truth is not cruel. It is honest. And honesty is the first step toward freedom. Part 2. Why waiting feels safe but steals your life. Waiting feels comfortable. You tell yourself, I just need more time. I'll start when things are better. I'm not ready yet. Waiting removes responsibility. As long as you are waiting, you don't have to act. You don't have to risk failure. You don't have to face uncertainty. Waiting feels safe, but time does not pause. While you wait, days pass, years pass, opportunities pass, and slowly, without noticing, waiting becomes a lifestyle. Not because you are lazy, but because waiting protects you from discomfort. The cost of waiting is not paid immediately. It is paid later, as regret. Part 3. How you learn to expect rescue. From childhood, you were trained to wait. Wait for instructions. Wait for permission. Wait for someone older, wiser, stronger. Someone else was responsible. Someone else decided. This structure was necessary then. But as you grew older, that structure disappeared. The responsibility shifted to you. Yet part of your mind never updated. It still waits. It waits for motivation. It waits for clarity. It waits for someone to notice your potential. This is not weakness. It is conditioning. But conditioning, if not questioned, becomes a prison. Part 4. The dangerous fantasy of being saved. Many people live with a silent fantasy that one day something will happen, a breakthrough, an opportunity, a person, and suddenly life will change. This fantasy feels comforting because it removes pressure. If salvation is coming, you don't have to build strength. But fantasies do not build lives. They delay them. And the longer you wait for rescue, the harder it becomes to accept responsibility. Part 5. Why motivation will not save you. Motivation is celebrated, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. It depends on mood. It disappears under stress. Waiting for motivation is another way of waiting to be saved. The people who change their lives do not wait to feel ready. They act while afraid. They move while uncertain. They build discipline when motivation is absent. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Part 6. The moment you realize pain is not enough. Pain alone does not create change. Many people suffer for years without changing anything. Pain can be endured. Responsibility cannot be ignored. Change begins when pain becomes personal responsibility. When you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What am I going to do about it?" That question changes everything. Part 7. Why blaming others feels good but keeps you weak. Blame feels relieving. If others are responsible, you are free from action. If the world is unfair, you are justified in staying stuck. But blame removes power. Because power only exists where responsibility is accepted. The moment you say, "This is my life," you reclaim control. And control is the beginning of strength. Part 8. The difference between being alone and being responsible. Being alone feels scary. Being responsible feels heavy. But responsibility is not punishment. It is authority. It means your actions matter. Your choices shape your future. Your effort has meaning. When you accept that no one is coming, you stop feeling abandoned. You start feeling accountable. And accountability is the birthplace of growth. Part 9. Why accepting responsibility feels heavier than suffering. Suffering can feel familiar. You learn how to live with it. You adapt. You complain, but you survive. Responsibility is different. Responsibility demands action. It forces you to admit that your current life is not only the result of circumstances, but also of choices. That realization hurts the ego, because once you accept responsibility, you lose the comfort of excuses. You can no longer say, "This happened to me." You must say, "This is my life, and I must respond to it." That weight feels heavy at first, but hidden inside that weight is power. Part 10. The moment you stop seeing yourself as a victim. Seeing yourself as a victim can feel protective. It explains pain. It justifies inaction. It creates sympathy. But it also creates paralysis. Victimhood removes agency. If everything is happening to you, nothing is happening through you. The moment you step out of victimhood, life becomes harder, but also clearer. You stop asking for rescue and start asking for direction, and direction only appears when you move. Part 11. Why no one can carry your inner struggles. Others may listen, others may support you, but no one can carry your internal battles, your fears, your doubts, your discipline. These are private wars. Waiting for someone to understand perfectly is another form of waiting. Understanding is helpful, but it is not required. Growth happens when you act even while misunderstood. Part 12. The lie that you need confidence first. Many people believe, if I felt confident, I would act. But confidence is not a prerequisite. Confidence is built through exposure. Action creates evidence. Evidence creates belief. Waiting for confidence keeps you frozen. Movement, even imperfect movement, creates momentum. And momentum changes identity. Part 13. Why discipline replaces rescue. When no one is coming, discipline becomes your support system. Discipline does not motivate. It stabilizes. It creates structure when emotions fluctuate. It becomes the quiet force that carries you forward on days when hope is absent. Discipline is self-rescue, not dramatic, not heroic, daily, consistent, unseen. Part 14. The painful freedom of self-reliance. Self-reliance is uncomfortable. It removes dependency. It removes excuses. It removes fantasy. But it gives something rare, stability. You no longer depend on moods, people, or circumstances to show up. You become someone who can be trusted. And self-trust is more valuable than external support. Part 15. Why most people return to waiting. After moments of clarity, many people return to waiting. Not because they forget the truth, but because responsibility is tiring. Waiting allows rest without effort. Responsibility requires sustained energy. That is why growth must be gradual. You do not abandon waiting overnight. You replace it with small acts of ownership. Part 16. The small decisions that prove you are coming for yourself. You don't save yourself in one big moment. You save yourself through small decisions. Getting up when it's hard. Doing the task you want to avoid. Speaking honestly when silence feels easier. These decisions rebuild dignity. They quietly say, I am here for myself. Over time, that sentence becomes identity. Part 17. Why this realization feels lonely at first. Accepting that no one is coming can feel isolating because hope was attached to external rescue. Letting go of that hope creates emptiness. But emptiness is not loss, it is space. Space for self-leadership. Space for clarity. Space for growth. Loneliness fades as strength grows. Part 18. The transformation from despair to direction. Despair comes from powerlessness. Direction comes from responsibility. Even imperfect direction is better than passive waiting. When you move, your mind follows. Clarity appears after action, not before. Part 19. Why self-compassion must exist with responsibility. Many people fear responsibility because they confuse it with harshness. They believe, if I take full responsibility, I will become cruel with myself. But responsibility without compassion leads to burnout, and compassion without responsibility leads to stagnation. You need both. Self-compassion allows you to acknowledge pain without collapsing. Responsibility allows you to move forward without excuses. When combined, they create sustainable growth. You stop punishing yourself for being human, but you also stop abandoning yourself when things get difficult. Part 20. How taking ownership changes your inner dialogue. When you stop waiting for rescue, your internal voice changes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What can I do next?" This question is powerful. It shifts your focus from helplessness to agency. Even when the answer is small, it restores momentum. Ownership simplifies life. It removes mental noise and replaces it with direction. Part 21. Why most people overcomplicate change. Change does not require a perfect plan. Most people delay action because they want certainty. But certainty is built through movement. Your mind wants guarantees. Life offers feedback. When you accept feedback instead of guarantees, you stop waiting. You act, you adjust, you grow. Part 22. The role of pain as a teacher, not an enemy. Pain is often misunderstood. It is not punishment. It is information. It shows you where alignment is missing. Ignoring pain keeps you stuck. Listening to pain guides change. When you stop asking pain to disappear and start asking what it is teaching, growth becomes inevitable. Part 23. Why no one coming is actually liberating. At first, the idea feels heavy, but over time, it becomes freeing. If no one is coming, you are not late. You are not failing expectations. You are simply responsible for your own path. Freedom begins when comparison ends. And comparison ends when you stop waiting for someone else's validation. Part 24. How self-leadership is built in silence. Self-leadership is quiet, no applause, no recognition. It happens in moments no one sees. Choosing discipline when tired. Choosing honesty when uncomfortable. Choosing effort when no one is watching. These moments shape character, and character shapes destiny. Part 25. The day you realize you have always been enough to start. Many people wait because they believe they are not ready. But readiness is not a requirement. It is a byproduct. You become ready by beginning. You become strong by carrying weight. You become capable by acting while uncertain. The version of you who could save you is not in the future. It is created now. Part 26. Why your life changes when you stop negotiating with fear. Fear will always speak, but it does not get a vote. When you stop negotiating, fear loses authority. You acknowledge it, you respect it, you move anyway. This is not recklessness. It is leadership, leading yourself forward despite internal resistance. Part 27. The difference between hope and commitment. Hope is passive. Commitment is active. Hope waits. Commitment moves. Hope says, maybe things will change. Commitment says, I will change them. When commitment replaces hope, waiting ends, and action begins. Part 28. How identity shifts when you stop waiting. Once you stop waiting, You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs saving. You become someone who responds to difficulty, responds to discomfort, responds to responsibility. That identity shift is permanent because once you experience self-leadership, you can never unsee it. Part 29. The moment you realize waiting was a defense mechanism. At some point, a difficult truth emerges. Waiting was never about hope. It was about protection. Protection from failure. Protection from judgment. Protection from responsibility. Waiting felt safe because it delayed confrontation. But safety slowly became a prison. When you stop waiting, you see clearly that inaction was a way to avoid pain, not a way to avoid loss. And that realization changes everything, because it shows you that fear was never external. It was internal. Part 30. Why adulthood is not about age, but ownership. Many people grow older without ever growing up internally. True adulthood begins when excuses end, not when life becomes easier, not when support appears, but when you accept that your life reflects your choices. This is not blame. This is power. Because ownership gives you the authority to change direction. Without it, you are always waiting for permission. Part 31. How the mind reacts when you stop seeking rescue. At first, the mind resists. It creates doubts. It amplifies fears. It replays past failures. This is normal. Your mind was trained to outsource responsibility. When you remove that option, it panics. But panic fades, and clarity replaces it, because the mind adapts to the role you assign it. If you treat yourself as capable, your mind follows. Part 32. Why consistency matters more than confidence. Confidence is unreliable. It comes and goes. Consistency builds identity. When you act consistently, even without confidence, your brain updates its self-image. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" and start assuming, "This is who I am." Consistency creates trust between you and yourself, and self-trust is the foundation of mental stability. Part 33. The hidden grief of realizing no one is coming. There is a quiet grief that comes with this realization. Not sadness, but release. You grieve the fantasy that someone would arrive and make things easier. You grieve the version of life that never existed. And once that grief passes, you feel lighter. Because illusions are heavy. Truth, even when uncomfortable, frees energy. Part 34. How self-respect is built through follow-through. Self-respect is not self-talk, it is self-proof. Every time you say you will do something and follow through, you reinforce identity. Every time you don't, you weaken it. This is not about perfection. It is about alignment. When your actions match your words, your nervous system relaxes, because internal conflict disappears. Part 35. Why saving yourself is a daily practice. There is no final moment where everything is solved. Self-leadership is ongoing. Every day you choose whether to respond or retreat. Some days you do better, some days you struggle, but you never go back to waiting. Because once you experience agency, passivity feels unbearable. Part 36. The quiet strength of becoming your own foundation. When no one is coming, you become the foundation. Not emotionally isolated, not closed off, but grounded. You no longer collapse when support disappears. You appreciate help, but you don't depend on it. This balance creates resilience, and resilience creates peace. Part 37. Why this realization does not make you hard. It makes you free. Some believe this mindset creates cold people. The opposite is true. When you stop waiting for rescue, you stop resenting others. You stop blaming. You stop comparing. You become generous because you are not desperate. Freedom softens you. It does not harden you. Part 38. How this truth changes the way you see life. When you fully accept that no one is coming to save you, your relationship with life changes. You stop asking life to be fair. You stop negotiating with circumstances. Instead, you ask a different question. What can I do with what I have right now? This question is powerful because it brings you back to the present, not to regret, not to fear, to action. Part 39. Why responsibility is the greatest form of self-care. Responsibility is often misunderstood. People think it means pressure, burden, or heaviness. In reality, responsibility reduces anxiety. Because uncertainty comes from helplessness. When you take responsibility, you remove ambiguity. You know where you stand. You know what needs to be done. This clarity calms the nervous system. Responsibility is not punishment. It is stability. Part 40. How to live without waiting but without rushing. Not waiting does not mean rushing. It means moving intentionally. It means taking one step, then another. It means allowing progress without demanding perfection. You stop asking, when will my life start, and start living it. Slowly, deliberately, honestly. Part 41. The shift from seeking help to building skill. When you stop waiting for rescue, you stop searching for saviors. You start building skills. Skills create independence. Independence creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. And momentum changes lives, not overnight, but permanently. Part 42. Why this is the beginning, not the end. This realization is not the end of hope. It is the beginning of grounded hope. Hope based on effort. Hope based on learning. Hope based on self-trust. You no longer hope someone will fix things. You hope because you know you can respond. Part 43. The quiet power of choosing yourself. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. When you stop waiting for permission, you reclaim energy. When you stop waiting for rescue, you reclaim direction. And when you stop waiting for someone else to believe in you, you begin to believe in yourself. That belief grows quietly, but it changes everything. Part 44. Final reflection. No one is coming to save you. And that is not a curse. It is an invitation to step forward, to take ownership, to become steady in an unstable world. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stop waiting. If this message helped you reflect, and if you want to continue improving your English while listening to deep, meaningful stories like this, subscribe to English Rise. Here, you train your English and your mindset at the same time. Thank you for being here. And remember, your life begins the moment you stop waiting for someone else to start it.